60,000 words, big milestone, big mark. Half of the book in volume is finished. We are 15 days in. Today is day 16. We have yet to put any words down. The current word count is 60,007 words, so just over that mark. And if you've been doing the math, following along, that means that I've slowly been writing less and less every single day. Because I think at one point I was like 800 words buffered and then 600 words and so on and so on. So we're still averaging 4,000 words every day, which is the good thing. And I kind of just try to write until we get to a chapter break and a place that seems like it makes sense to stop. So yesterday's day, it just made sense to stop where I was. And that had me right at 60,000 words, 60,007 words. So that's where we were. We're going to hit another 4,000 today or close to it and get to 64,000. We are continuing on day 16, keep going. I wanted to touch on a couple things briefly today, and maybe not talk so much about the writing and where we're at with the story, but just kind of maybe talk a little bit about theory and what writing means and why write. What's the point of doing this? I think for me, and I mean, this is my channel, so obviously for me, but I would like to do this full time in a way that can support my family. And so this would be my main career, my main job that brings in money. So that means selling books, selling stories. And that's the goal. That's what we're working towards. But beyond that, beyond the financial standpoint of things, what is the goal of this? What am I trying to do? Am I trying to just make entertainment, make stories that people like to read, that are fun to read? Am I trying to get kids into reading? Am I writing for that audience? Am I writing for adults who are looking for a certain kind of story? Am I trying to have a message, something, kind of an Aesop's fable moral in my stories? What is the goal? What am I trying to do? And this is kind of a question that I've wrestled with, I guess, for a long time, because it's hard for me to think that stuff doesn't mean anything, that it's just, you make something and it just goes out there and it doesn't have any value and doesn't have any continuancy. It is, and then you consume it and then it's gone. I don't like that. I don't like that idea. And so I would like my stories to have some more meaning to it. And I'd like it to stick with you and make you think. Because the best stories that I've ever read, the best movies I've ever seen, the best music I've ever listened to sticks with you long after you consume that media. And so that's kind of my thought. I think a big component of that, potentially, hopefully, and I'm still trying to figure out how it all works out, is the religious aspect of the writing of the story. I'm a Christian. That's my upbringing. That's where I currently am. I want to live everything that I can towards Christ and give everything back to Him, right? And so I want to think about that in my books. Does that mean that everything is, allegorical? Everything is set in a world that is fully a picture of our current world, with a creator narrative, with a redeemer salvation narrative? That I don't know, because it's like, do all stories have to point to that? Probably, right? Everything should point back to the thing that you believe in. If you're not a Christian, you have a different worldview. It would kind of make sense that your worldview is reflected in your work. If you're a Muslim and you write books that have some of that Muslim imagery and religion in them, it would make sense that is, that shines through, right? And so, and it gets people back to the holy texts and the holy tenets of that religion. Mormonism, Hinduism, Buddhism, if you're an agnostic or an atheist, I think whatever it is, if that's who you are when you write when you make your stuff, and we're talking about writing, so if that's who you are when you make your books, it would make sense to me that those things are reflected and those things stand out. And you obviously can just make ambivalent, kind of neutral content. I'm aware of that stuff that doesn't really affect anything, but I don't know if that's. I think that's a theory. I don't know if that happens in practice, because whoever you are, whatever your worldview is going into consuming some form of media, I believe that you're going to kind of pull out the things that align with what you believe. And so you're going to see you're gonna read Lord of the Rings and you're gonna go, oh, I can see the Christian themes in this. I recognize that Tolkien wasn't going for allegory, but because of his Catholic faith, that faith is put into his works. I'm not Catholic, but I can still see the Christian synonyms, right? Some C.S. Lewis, same as that. You can even go so. I mean, people pull it out of everything, and whatever that media is, you could have a Marvel movie and a character sacrificed himself, and you go, well, that sacrifice that's pulled from the Christian narrative, Jesus sacrificing himself for the good of mankind, and so theoretically you can grab that from anything. But what is our intention as the writer, as the author? And I, in writing this book, I have a few different religions in the story. I'm trying to be realistic to what the world is, but I want to write something that is good versus evil, hopeful versus despair. I guess if that's the opposite of hope, and I'd like to have a redemption narrative for some of these characters, maybe. And a turning to hope, because I think we see a lot of grimdark in fantasy where everybody's gray, everybody's neutral. There's nothing good or bad. Everybody's just kind of sort of more on the bad side, I guess. If you're not good, you're bad, maybe. I'm rambling a lot here, but I'm trying to get the thoughts out because I've been thinking about this a lot. Like this book, I wanted to go into it thinking about my faith and how to impact that into the story. And the book that I wrote in November, it was, a YA. Well, it's not even a YA. It's just a middle grade fantasy science fiction story, and I wanted to have a Christian narrative in that because I'm thinking about my nieces and nephews, my own son, future children that I might have, and I'd like to make something that people that are around me can read in that space. And so, I think in the fantasy space, I think the first line for me would be, is this clean? Is this something that, kids who maybe, have certain moral restrictions, whatever their religion may be, and being honest, probably leaning more towards Christianity. If they have moral restrictions on what they can consume, can I put something out there that can still, cater to them? When I was a kid, I was raised in a protective household, and I liked that. I'm an adult now; I can make my own decisions, but I recognize the value of that and the things that it kept me from. And you don't have to consume anything. You don't have to read any book. You don't have to watch any movie in life. You could go your whole life without seeing any of those things. So for somebody, people might hear that and go, "Oh, you were just, you were really held back from things. Your parents just didn't love you, and they wanted to keep you from things and prevent you from stuff, and you were so sheltered." I don't see it that way. None of that stuff is mandatory and necessary. And if the only movie I watched growing up was, the animated Robin Hood movie, was my upbringing was it so bad? It's like, no, the life is not in movies and books. It's beyond that, whatever your background is. And so so I think for kids like that, who are like me growing up, who, weren't allowed to read certain things because of the content in them, can I make something that still scratches that fantasy itch or the science fiction itch for some of these people, and write in a variety of age ranges? A middle grade book, a young adult book, an adult book, and still not break like codes of content, and do something that can glorify my creator, because I think that's what I'm supposed to do, right? And I think there's probably stages of that. How in depth the book is in. Is it explicitly talking about Jesus? Is it that? But that means it has to be set in our world, So then now I'm setting in another world. You have something like Narnia, where you have this allegory. Narnia is one of the greatest fantasy series of all time, one of the best-selling fantasy series of all time. They're kids' books, but they're beloved across all generations, ages, and I'm assuming religions, right? People just love them. It's hard not to see the Christian aspects of those stories, especially the first couple books. It's just pretty prevalent, but they do well. Is my goal to just kind of sell a bunch of books and lose what I should be doing? Probably not. So Not to say that this is going to become a apologetics channel, because I'm not a theologian, so I don't have that background. I would consider myself a writer, an unpublished writer, but a writer still. And so that's where my background is. But I want to talk about that a little bit today, and talk about beliefs, systems, and religion and that kind of thing. If you are a person of a religious belief that is Christian or not Christian, do you think, and you're a writer, do you think that you have like, I don't even want to say obligation, but do you think that there's some push that you feel within you to put that into your work? If you're a Buddhist and you're writing stories, do you think that it's important to have the tenets of that religion in your work, to either A, reflect what your own belief system, or B, to make something for the people who also adhere to that belief system? And obviously you can read things and you can consume entertainment from different points of view, from different worldviews. I read a lot of books that aren't by Christian authors. I almost don't read any Christian authors because there's not, as far as I'm aware, there's not that many in the Christian fantasy sphere. And so I'm trying to learn from good creators. I read a lot of Stephen King. That's not even in fantasy for the most part. He writes almost exclusively horror, and he does have Christian themes in a lot of his stories. So you can, there's something there. But I think if you're a creator, it's important to see the things that are created well. But yeah, what as a viewer of this channel, however many people will get to the end of this this video here where I'm talking, what are your thoughts? Do you think that it's valuable to have those things in your story? Is it better to not have anything and to try to be as neutral and as broad and as, catch as many fish as you can? Or is it better to be a little bit more nuanced and narrow-minded, and focus on your audience, whichever that may be? And again, if you're Christian, should you write for Christians or should you write for everybody? If you're a Muslim, should you write for Muslims or everybody? If you're a Jew, should you write for Jewish people or everybody? What does that work? What does it look like? That's my time. That's all I'm going to say. A lot of word vomit, I think. And I'll probably try to make a video maybe more succinct about this later on. But as for this today, I just wanted to ramble a little bit and talk about my thoughts and where I'm at. And if you're reading the story and you see some of these different religions in there and some of them seem like they're Christian adjacent, they are, because that's my goal. So thanks for watching. Thanks for following along. I look forward to day 16 today, getting the writing down, and then the future days, and get to the end of the month, and we will be done with 120,000 words. So hopefully the story is close to being finished by then. I doesn't feel like it will be because I think there's a lot of stuff that I need to build yet, but we'll find out. So thanks for watching. Adios.